Hello, um, welcome. This is a short video about what truly happens in the body and the processes that are related to um, energy consumption by the cells. Um, and before I continue, just a disclaimer, these are just raw data from the World Wide Web, the internet, and I'm just sharing how things actually work underneath because I feel it doesn't get enough publicity what really happens underneath. So let's dive in. All right. So what happens is there's a hormone called insulin, and it really depends on how much of it is released based on the type of food you eat, right? So food group like fats is, which shows the represents the green line, which releases the least amount of insulin. Then you have the proteins, which are the blue line, that releases more insulin when that's consumed, and then you get the highest release from either the low glycemic carbohydrates / sugars or the high glycemic index carbohydrates. So now, before I continue, these are the values. If you have a lean body, you will most likely release on an average day between 18 and 40 units. They count those in units. Unit is think of it as a small drop of insulin. So it really depends on how much you eat in that day, and on averages it shares that internet says that you release between 30 to 50, right? So why is this important, and how does this have anything to do with weight loss or weight gain or keeping your weight leveled, balanced, optimal? So you only really we really eat too many carbs. That's the first thing, and this will really probably dictate your increase in release of insulin by the pancreas, right? So how does this work? I'm gonna try to do some drawings. Bear with me. This is the stomach. This is something you eat that's sweet, goes into the stomach. Then the pancreas realizes that there's sweet stuff in the blood in the stomach, and it's going to release something called insulin, and in your bloodstream you're going to have the sugars and the insulin coursing because the pancreas is going to release insulin. And so what happens is, what this is actually, it's telling all the cells in your body, hey, there's energy. I want all your cells to start taking this energy from the bloodstream, right? So as this is signaling that to the cells start absorbing the energy, which is glucose, which comes from carbs, which is represented by the square, right? So now when you eat a lot of unhealthy sugars in a day, and you consume more than you should, right? More than you should, and I'll speak to this in a little bit because this is actually very interesting. But if you consume more than you should, what's gonna happen is all these cells are gonna be full of energy. You're not really active. Maybe you have a gentle day. You're not doing a whole lot. You're not moving a lot, and so what's gonna happen is if this if the insulin is continuously telling the receptors of the cells that they should take in more energy from the bloodstream, which is glucose, they're just going to create a new cell if they're full, and they're going to say, hey, we can't take any more, but this new one can. And now imagine the body has so many cells where you store energy, and that's the fatty tissue. So imagine you can easily create a lot of new cells that store. So then later, if this process is reversed where you're actually losing weight, then this cell at some point is going to get deflated and kind of terminated at some point, and it's going to go away because it was kind of an extra cell. So there's memory. Obviously, these cells know which one needs to go first, etc. So this is really how you put on weight. You'll create a new cell that's going to store energy because you went over your you ate too many carbs or protein too, fats too. They're all being stored, but carbs are the most aggressive in terms of in terms of energy. They're the most potent, right? That's why they're saying to have a low carb diet, which can help, which is true. But remember, that no one's really saying these, how these processes underneath, how they function, and that's why I'm here to kind of elaborate on those. So what happens here is, let's take for example this lean person that's going to produce 18 to 40 units of insulin, which we're just going to say that they've eaten a normal day of eating, maybe breakfast, something for breakfast, something for lunch, something for dinner, which is going to equal to somewhere within this range, 18 to 40 small drops of insulin, right? Let's just call it like that. So what's going to happen is, as you get to the larger number of the range, which is 40, you're actually going to start putting on weight, right? Because of this process. And if you get to the lower end of the range, you're going to start losing weight. And that's really simple, is because you're either packing in energy into those cells, or you're more gentle and you're not doing that as frequently. So this process, actually the cells start using the energy that's already stored, and they burn it, and then maybe you'll be able to drop off a bunch of these cells in a day, right? So that's really why we have a really tough situation where if we want to lose weight, it feels tough. It feels like it's not, there's not a lot going on. You can't really lose weight fast. And that's why, this is why, right? This is a process. This takes some time, right? You have to be very gentle with yourself, and falling in within a healthy range here is really important, right? Because this is just from my experience, which I have some. I'm gonna say that if you create 18 units of insulin in a day, you're gonna probably start getting leaner. It's not gonna be really fast, but it's gonna definitely start dropping cells off, and you're gonna start getting leaner. And within a month, you will see a big difference, right? Now, if you're gonna be at 30, you're actually maybe already over the threshold, and you may be putting on more energy into the cells that you're actually burning throughout the day, right? In effect, you're going to be maybe gaining maybe a half a pound a week, maybe a pound, right? So now I'm going to jump into another area which is not talked about enough, is that the frequency of eating carbs also has an impact. If you eat them frequently in a day, then you're just enforcing this process, and you're broadcasting, take in energy, it's in the bloodstream, take in energy, take in glucose, right? Now if you eat once a day, right, and you fall in a decent number, let's say you're just gonna have a healthy day, you're not gonna eat a lot of carbs. You know what they're saying is that 50 grams is a low number. Hospital says 60 grams, right? So, but before doing anything, check with your healthcare professional. This is just raw data that I'm sharing with you and how it works. But if you eat once a day, what's gonna happen is you're gonna be in the process where you're telling cells take in more energy less, which makes a difference, right? Because you're going to be in a state of burning more throughout the day. Your body's going to spend more time in the burning, which there's no extra energy. It's not in the bloodstream. And what's happening is your body saying, hey, we need energy. Take it from all the cells. And this is what doesn't get talked about, right? You're supposed to figure out when in a day you should eat carbs, when you're going to be active or just before you're being active, maybe not really right before, because then you're going to have a full stomach and you may not feel good, but something like that where you're figuring out when is the best time to eat those carbs in a day for you, and then try to eat it once a day. That way you'll be more in the your body's going to have less insulin coursing in your veins throughout the day. In effect, it's going to spend less time asking cells to take in more energy, and in effect you're going to be burning because there's nothing forced into the cells. Now I'll say one other thing is that this process is very forceful, right? When you have glucose in your bloodstream, right, and insulin is coursing in your veins telling cells to take in energy, it's not like they have a choice. They got to take all the energy that's in the bloodstream. Of course, that is if you're healthy, if you don't have issues with this process. That's why it's really easy to put on weight, because it's a forceful process. There's glucose in the bloodstream needs to be put in cells. That's why it's very important to be mindful that this energy that you're taking, it needs to be burned, it needs to be used, right? So you eat you eat how much you should in regards to how much you're gonna use, and figure that out, right? So this is really where I think not enough information is out there that really tells you, right? You're supposed to figure out how much you eat. You're supposed to figure out here in this range, in a healthy lean range, where do you fall in, and you start really losing weight, or you're keeping the weight, right? You have to figure out what the number is. Now, of course, you may not know what the number is because it's in your blood and you got to get tested and things like that. But you got to figure out how much carbs you eat once a day, and what starts happening with the amount of insulin that's being released, and how that affects the cells, and how much energy is being put in the cells, and how much is being burned. And you just want to figure that out, how much you need, and what happens with the weight. Obviously, you have to have a really good diet. Best thing is to eat really high quality foods and not eat a lot of them, because the body is going to crave more energy if there's no nutrients in the foods, right? Or there's a lack. If the quality of the food is low, your body's going to crave more, then you're gonna overeat. You're gonna overeat, get to the further to the higher end of this number, and you're gonna start putting on weight. So you gotta have a healthy diet, rich, high quality foods, healthy carbs, nature made, right? Legumes, lentils, blueberries, banana, coconut water, strawberries, pear, things like that. Those are healthy carbs. Buckwheat, for example, right? Stuff you want to avoid is high glycemic index, right? Rice, pasta, things like that really force you to spike because you want to control. So this process that I'm describing here in general, it's called insulin control. This is where you control the insulin because you control your carb intake. You have a window, 2 hours. You don't go over the 2 hours in a day where you eat carbs. That means least amount of insulin coursing in your bloodstream, which means your body's more in a burning state throughout the day, overnight, than it is in regards to putting in energy into the cells, right? Now, that's the insulin control because you're controlling how much insulin you release into the bloodstream. If you release less insulin into the bloodstream in a healthy range where you're supposed to fall in, let's say it's maybe, I don't know, I'm just gonna, it could be like, 26, 32. It really depends on how active you are, because that's you have to balance this. But somewhere you fall in somewhere where you'll see, hey, weight staying the same, right? Now, if I want to lose a little bit of weight in a healthy way, I may just reduce the amount of carbs gradually and not make any crazy changes here, in regards to, really dropping the amount of food you eat. You have to slowly, gradually reduce, especially carbs, right? Because they spike the insulin, and that's what causes all these issues, and all this potent energy gets stored in the cells. Once you start controlling this, replace unhealthy carbs with healthy carbs, 2 hour window in a day, and start playing around with the amount of food you eat, and you'll see that you're gonna find a place where you maintain the weight, and you can write that in your notes. Hey, this is what I'm eating, and my weight's been stable for a week, but I want to lose 5-10 more pounds. So I'm just gonna, maybe every other day, I'm gonna reduce the amount of carbs I eat, right? So that's a gentle, healthy way to control this. I hope you guys like this video. If you want more content like this, let me know.